everybody. Like my comedy, like I love it going across the boards, and when everyone's leaning in together, it's my favorite thing. And
Right.
I'm definitely during this time, I'm looking back, going, man, I've always been really good at trying to appreciate the moments and what I have. But this has really hit me back going, man, when I get back to the stand-up stage, I am going to savor every single laugh from this point forward, because
Right.
it's such a huge part of my life and the world. And it's not the biggest, most important in the whole aspect of what's happening in the world,
Right.
but it's my little corner.
Well,
And
let me ask you this.
yeah, man, I really miss it.
Let me ask you this. So the past couple of weeks, obviously, COVID-19. We're all sick of talking about it. But here in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
show, we've been talking about how I hope my hope coming out of this is that we see a renaissance of the arts. We see people, and this applies to movies, comics, video games, whatever it is artistically, that people have now had time to sit and think and create and think outside the box and really push themselves to what I mean. Everybody's trying to do like something unique. People are trying the Facebook Live comedy shows and all
Yeah.
these different things. What do you speculate? Do you see something that might come? What positive do you see coming out of all this?
Well, I think family spending time together is definitely a positive. I think a lot of people are realizing, oh man, I haven't taken enough walks with my wife or my parents or this, or I haven't. I think when we've been on deployments, and deployments do something to you. Like
Mm.
for the military people right now, they're kind of like, okay, so I'm locked in place, and they're telling me what to wear when I go outside, and when to go outside. Okay, I get that. So, uh, but when I think of like, you're the first person. This is the first thing I've done throughout this whole entire thing. Like, I'm working on a podcast with Sam Pressler,
Oh yeah.
who was the founder of ASAP,
Oh
and
yeah.
him and I have been working really hard on a podcast that's going to be released, I think this week. But for the most part, I've been getting to spend time with my wife. I travel a lot. This is the most time I got to spend with her in the past 3 years. And so I'm very, very fortunate. Again, I'm very fortunate where I used to live in New York City. So I'm paying attention to everything that's happening there. I was
Mm.
born in New York City. So I'm paying attention to everything that's happening, but I'm also looking at this as this is the most time I got to spend with my wife. We got married in August, and the most time we spent together in the past like 3 years.
Wow.
So I'm trying to focus on that kind of stuff. And I think for a lot of people, they're starting to realize, like, I miss my sisters. I miss my parents. We could do FaceTime. We could do Zoom and all that stuff. But there's nothing like giving them a hug. And I think we're going to come out of that, and we're just going to realize how valuable touch is, how valuable
Yeah.
it is to just embrace somebody. And for me, that's something I'm looking at. I remember the first time a grown man hugged me. It was when I was in the military. Like, I grew up Irish. Like, we didn't touch each other. And it was Mike Jennings. Like, he got off a plane and he goes, "Yo, Walsh," and he gives me this huge bear hug. And I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
So I think that's something people are coming out of. And then as far as entertainment goes, we'll get back to it. It's just going to take a little bit of time, probably, because 50% of people will be like, I don't care, I'm going in. And 50% will be a little bit of gun shy, but
Yeah.
eventually we'll get there, because everybody's creative and people appreciate creativeness. I mean, my father creative as a plumber, landscapers, comedians, and writers. So, creativity is always going to thrive in some fashion. And
Right on.
getting people in a room together for theater, music, stand up, we'll get back there.
All right. Okay. Another question for you. What,
Yeah.
I know being a veteran, we get asked some of the stupidest,
Oh,
most
yeah.
ridiculous questions. Oh, did you kill someone? Oh, did you see someone die? All this stupid, like, you should never ask. Um, so you have an interesting, obviously, take on it as being a both veteran and comedian. What's been the most annoying question to you as a comedian? What's the question that bugs the shit out of you when people ask?
Oh, you know what? I think all comics do this. when after you do a show, somebody asks you about whoever the hot comic in a moment is. Do you know so and so?
Mm.
Have you heard so and so? And it's always like a dismissive thing of like, yeah, I have, but you're dealing with me right now, you prick. So like all comics behind the scenes are just kind of like, yeah, of course I do. I'm in the business. I'm paying attention. Of course I know who is doing, and you always feel good for them. But I think that's kind of like the get or done thing,
Mm.
um, where I think there's a little bit of that. But I think the question that annoys that I don't know annoys me, but when people ask me, did that really happen? Like when I talk about when I
Oh,
worked in the White House and I break
yeah.
it down, I have all the jokes and there's a callbacks and all that, and then I'll get off stage and they'll be like, "Did you really work in the White House?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I just made up that 20 minutes just to fill some time." Um, but I mean, that's the dynamic of the kind of comic. I'm a springboard from things that happen to me. Then there are other comics who just do jokes, and they can have a your grandfather could be alive even if they didn't have a grandfather. Like
Right.
there's just different kind of comics, and
Sure.
I'm just one that comes more of a storyteller and
Well,
a life experience one.
speaking of that,
So
I've got,
that,
I
and
was gonna
then
say,
yeah, question about the military too. But
yeah.
have you ever killed somebody? I always go not in like the past hour.
I you had a great what was it? You had a great line. I remember hearing about like was it about gingivitis? Like I killed or 17 people slowly with gingivitis, something like that. Didn't you have a line like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I was with Marines overseas. I go and trained as a dental technician. I I killed 7 guys with gingivitis. Took 23 years, but I got them pricks.
I love that. It's such a silly premise, but it works. Um,
People are like, yeah, that's the thing I always say all the time too. The other joke, you remind me of when they go, "Have you been to war?" I go, "Yeah, the war on plaque."
See, that's good. That is good, clean, funny right there. And I gotta say about watching you perform, the what got me, you say you're this springboard from your truth and the story, but like I feel like you're a springboard in real life in that you bounce around that stage with such energy like I was out of breath watching you perform comedy. Like you there was a moment you were in the back of the audience and are sprinting to the stage. I was like, I get tired standing on stage, and here you are doing stage like dive bombs off of it.
Man, I think it just comes from my dad. My dad was a plumbing contractor, and I used to do all that work with him. And just in my mindset is, if I'm not sweating, I'm not working. So for me, just to sit there, like I don't mind doing like this and talking, and everything's been really small with like Zoom and all those kind of things now, and that's a whole different beast. But like for me, comedy is like a title fight, like a crack the neck and you go in and an audience is like, an audience, you always, people are like, are you very comfortable? I'm like, you're comfortable, but you got to be prepared, because audience are animals. Like you got to remember the tiger bites back,
That's
you know,
right.
Siegfried and Roy, he forgot the tiger bites,
Yeah, you can't get
you know,
comfortable.
to me, that's one of, yeah, I can't get too comfortable, but I do like I like to know that I'm working. I like to know that I'm moving around. And I'm from New York, and I was a wrestler and a gymnast, so it doesn't really like I'm a mover. For me to stand there with just a mic in the stand would be very very tough. But that's why I did my one man show. My one man show was much more controlled like that. It was a totally different way of act. It was acting as
Mm.
opposed to stand up. So
Right on, right on. Let me ask you, what do you have? Is it okay? Because trying to do comedy, because I try to formulate here, because I write jokes, and anytime I get inspiration, I write it down. There are these times where these things will happen. I'll go, oh my god, this is gonna make for an excellent joke. But like you sit down, you write, and for whatever reason, you just can't make the joke work the way. Have you ever had
right.
that? Have you ever had that? Like, I'm just curious if you had a joke that like you're so desperate, you want to use it, you love it, the idea of it, whatever, but you just couldn't make it work.
Oh, wait, one, so many, so many.
Do you have a favorite?
There are so many jokes that, but what happens with those jokes, I always feel like if it's funny, just I have like just boxes and boxes of notes and for over the years, and I tape every single set still to this day. but well, what I always go, if I can't make it work, it doesn't mean it's not ready now. It's like maybe I'm not ready for it. Maybe I haven't figured out what it needs to go with, or maybe I haven't grown into it, or maybe I've grown out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just doesn't fit. So to me, I just put it in a mental filing cabinet or write it in a book, and then maybe 2 years down the line, or even 5 years down the line, something else comes up and I'm like, oh, that's what this will go with, and that, or I know how to tell it better.
Right.
For me, the White House, I mean, I was always like, people were like, why don't you talk about the White House? When I was like, when I first started to stand up, and it just wasn't working because for some reason I just didn't talk about it because it just didn't work. And then part of the reason I created a one man show was to tell that story because I thought it was amazing that I mean I got top secret clearance. I worked on the president. I used to walk into the when I was a kid, if you showed me a picture of the White House and the moon, they were the same distance. I wasn't getting to either of those. And then I was walking in there, right? Like, and so I wanted to tell that story. So I mean, yeah, I don't even, I don't, it's,
It's tough, right?
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah, that's a
call
tough
that
one.
when we do the classes with the new guys, we'll call it putting in the compost bin, right? You're recycling it. You put it there, it'll be there. You'll come back to it, and it'll be useful later. Do you have any like superstitions? Some people have to read their set before going on, or drink a certain beverage. Do you have anything like that before you go on or after?
I double tie my shoes.
Double tie your shoes.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because I did a mime kick one time. My shoe went flying across the room.
That
I don't even
that's
remember. I
great.
think some guy grabbed it like midair and threw it back.
Oh, that's fantastic. So okay, so there you go.
I do that, and then also, yeah, that's pretty much that's the main one. And then I always try to take about a half hour before and be in my own zone, and just try to get into the mindset of how much I appreciate that I get to do comedy
Mm,
right now. Like when I first started, I had so many different jobs. I had a billion different jobs, and every time that I got to get on the stand up stage, I used to say to myself, I'm getting to be a comedian for the next 7 minutes. I get to be a comedian for the next 10 minutes. I've been working all week, but this is what I really, really want to do. So now that I am a professional comedian, I try to also make sure like I'm getting to be a comedian for the next hour. I just try to get back to that place of like, of just appreciating the fact that I get to do this.
yeah, no, I understand that. I respect that so much. Again, something we try to impart on the younger comedians is like, look, guys, okay, you've done this 6 weeks, you're ready, you're gonna go to show night. There are different like people are different in how they'll approach showtime, right? Because you're gonna have the guy that can be chit chatting and drinking away until the second he steps on the stage, and you're gonna have the people that are in the corner like rocking back and forth, clutching themselves, like
Yeah.
needing that process to get through the anxiety, or breathing in a bag, whatever. I'm the type that like I will just keep going over the set list. Like I'll have my bullet points and I'll go over it and I'll work it out in my head, work it out in my head, and then but also like that last 5 minutes, try to okay, put it aside. I've done the best I can. Smile, look around, like you said, just look around, and be like, wow, this is I'm in the moment, and then boom, hit the stage and enjoy it.
Man, when I was touring with Larry the Cable Guy, this used to be my favorite thing. I used to call it the walk, right? It was so at the height, I lived on there were two tour buses. I was on one of the tour buses, and my favorite part, and to this day, this is still my favorite part of all of it, is I would be sitting in the back, and it'd be about right before showtime, and we'd be in an arena, and in the arena, there's like 16, 20,000 people, right? Lights are on, this day, and I'm in the back of the tour bus, and I'm putting on my boots, got my jeans on, the whole like tomato uniform, and then the tour manager and a concert promoter would come and knock on the door of the tour bus, and they go, PJ, you ready? And I'm like, yeah. And I'd come through the tour bus, and I'd step off the tour bus, and each of them would be on either side of me, and we'd start walking, from the parking lot into the venue, and I'd be walking past like all the wires and all the cases that have all the electrical equipment, and then you walk into the back of the arena, and then I'd walk up to the back, and you see the huge stage and these huge curtains, and you'd hear the audience just people right, and then the lights would drop, and then somebody would go up and be like, "Hey, you guys ready for?" And I'd hear that roar, and I know like this is it. This is